The sun hung red and strange in the sky above the colony settlement of New Dawn. Commander Lisa Morrison stood at the observation post, her hands gripping the metal railing so hard her knuckles turned white. She had seen the ships arrive 3 hours ago. They were massive, black, and shaped like predators. The Vex had come. New Dawn was home to 7,000 humans. They had built this settlement with their own hands over the past 10 years. The buildings were simple structures of reinforced steel and concrete. The fields produced enough food to keep everyone alive. There was no advanced military, no orbital defense stations, no weapons that could touch the ships hanging in the sky above them. There was only Lisa, her security force of 400 soldiers, and whatever courage they could find in the next few hours. The radio crackled. Her second officer, Derek, spoke from the settlement control center. His voice was steady, but Lisa could hear the tension underneath it. "Ma'am, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. They demand we surrender. They say they represent the Vex Empire." Lisa did not answer right away. She looked at the ships again. One of them descended slowly, creating wind that rattled the buildings below. The landing gear extended, and the massive vessel settled onto the plain outside the settlement with a force that made the ground tremble. "How long do we have?" Lisa asked. "They gave us 1 hour to respond," Derek said. "They said if we refuse, they will begin the assault." Lisa finally turned from the window. She was 52 years old, with gray streaking through her black hair. Her face was weathered from years in the sun, but her eyes were sharp and dark. She had studied history at university before the colony program recruited her. She had read about ancient Earth. She had read about the ways men and women had fought and survived when they had nothing but intelligence and will. "Assemble the command staff," Lisa said. "I will speak to this Vex commander myself." Derek did not argue. Whatever Lisa Morrison decided, the people of New Dawn would follow. She had earned the trust. 20 minutes later, Lisa walked across the barren ground toward the ship. She went alone. That was important. She wanted the Vex to see a human without soldiers behind her. One person, alone, willing to face them. The cargo door of the ship opened and descended like a ramp. Inside, the air was cold and smelled of something Lisa could not identify. Her eyes adjusted to the blue lighting inside the vessel. 3 figures stood waiting for her. The Vex commander was called Zexter. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with skin the color of dark stone. His body was covered in technology, devices and weapons integrated directly into his flesh. His face had no expression that Lisa could read. 2 guards stood behind him, equally massive, equally armed. Zexter spoke, and the translation device in Lisa's ear converted his language to English. His voice was like grinding stone. "You are the leader of this settlement? I am Commander Lisa Morrison. I speak for New Dawn." Zexter made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are primitive. This is clear. Your technology is centuries behind. Your weapons cannot touch our ships. You have no orbital defense. You have no military capability of any value. Surrender now, and you will be taken alive to work on Vex industrial stations. Refuse, and we will destroy everything here." Lisa looked directly into Zexter's face. She could not read what emotions lived behind those inhuman eyes, but she had learned in life that all beings, no matter how advanced, made the same mistake. They assumed that inferior technology meant inferior intelligence. They assumed that lesser weapons meant lesser will. "I will not surrender," Lisa said quietly. Zexter stepped forward. "You understand what I am telling you. Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your soldiers cannot stand against our forces. You are choosing to die." "I am choosing to fight," Lisa said. "What comes after that, we will see." The Vex commander made that grinding sound again. This time, Lisa understood it was definitely laughter. He found her answer amusing. That was good. Underestimation was a tool Lisa could use. You have 1 hour to change your decision, Zexter said. After that, we begin. Humans will die, Commander. Many humans. For nothing. Lisa turned and walked back toward the settlement without waiting for more words. She could feel Zexter's eyes on her back as she crossed the open ground. The cargo door hissed shut behind her. She had exactly 1 hour. When she reached the control center, Derek and the others were waiting. The maps were spread across the table. The settlement was marked with red lines showing their defensive positions. They were not good positions. They were not strong positions. But they were what they had. Listen to me, Lisa said. We are not going to fight them the way they expect us to fight. We are not going to line our soldiers up in front of their ships. We are not going to try to match their weapons against ours. That is how we lose. That is how we die for nothing. She pointed at the mountains to the north of the settlement. That is where we go. That is where we survive. A young soldier named Cameron spoke up. Commander, you want us to abandon the settlement? Just leave it? I want us to survive, Lisa said. The buildings can be rebuilt. Our families cannot. She looked at each face in the room. Fear was there, but so was something else. Something that made humans dangerous. It was the will to continue. It was the refusal to accept that the outcome was already decided. We have soldiers who know how to move quietly through terrain. We have people who understand our world in ways the Vex never will. We have something they do not have. We have nothing left to lose. That makes us dangerous. Cameron nodded slowly. What are your orders, Commander? Lisa looked at the map one more time. Get everyone to the evacuation point. Take only what you can carry. Move fast and move quiet. The Vex are coming, but they are not here yet. That time, that is ours. The alarm sounded across New Dawn. The evacuation had begun. 4 hours later, the settlement of New Dawn was empty of humans. Only the buildings remained, standing alone under the red sun. The Vex ships descended and began to destroy everything they found. They expected resistance. They expected a fight. What they found was an empty settlement and the knowledge that their prey had escaped. In the mountains to the north, Lisa Morrison and her people were beginning to plan how they would make the Vex Empire regret coming to this world. The cave system in the mountains had sheltered humans before. Ancient carvings on the walls told stories of civilizations that had existed thousands of years before Lisa's time. Now it would shelter them again. 7,000 people huddled in the darkness, and Lisa stood in the largest cave chamber, preparing her people for war. The evacuation had been clean. Every human had made it out before the Vex destroyed the settlement. They had lost buildings and stored supplies, but they had lost no lives. That was important. That was the first victory. Lisa gathered her command, staff in a smaller chamber where a chemical light hung from the ceiling. Derek was there. So was Rachel, the medical officer who had worked in the settlement hospital. Victoria was present too, the scout who knew every inch of terrain for 100 kilometers. The fourth person was Marcus, the commander of the security forces and a veteran of Earth's military training programs. They will expect us to scatter, Lisa said. They will expect us to break into small groups and hide. That is what inferior forces do when confronted with superior power. We are not going to do that. We are going to fight. Marcus leaned forward. With what, Commander? Our weapons cannot penetrate their armor. Our soldiers are trained for peacekeeping, not warfare against advanced aliens. Correct, Lisa said. She pulled out a small device, something she had built herself from settlement materials. But they will fight us with the same tactics they use everywhere. They will advance in formations. They will rely on their technology to protect them. They will expect us to die when we attack them, so they will not respect us. They will make mistakes. Rachel spoke next. You are going to use psychology against them? I am going to use their own assumptions against them, Lisa said. They think we are primitive. They think our weapons are toys. They think that if they advance toward us with enough firepower, we will break and scatter. They have never encountered a human who fights without those expectations. Victoria studied the map on the ground. It showed the territory surrounding the mountain caves. What is your plan exactly, Commander? Lisa pointed to a narrow valley leading down from the mountains. They will advance through here. It is the easiest route. We will meet them here, in this valley. We will appear to be weak. We will appear to be poorly organized. They will attack, and we will run, making them think we are beaten. But we will run into terrain that we have prepared. We will run into traps. Derek frowned. What kind of traps? We do not have advanced technology to create defensive systems. No, Lisa agreed. We have something better. We have the terrain itself. We have the knowledge of this world that they do not possess. We have prepared the ground ahead of time. When they advance, they will find the path beneath them becoming unstable. They will find steep drops they did not expect. They will find their formations broken by geography. Marcus understood first. You are going to use the land as a weapon. The land is our ally, Lisa said. They brought advanced weapons designed to fight other advanced civilizations. They brought ships that need open space to operate. But here, in these mountains, in these valleys, they are limited to what their soldiers can do on foot. And on foot, with our preparation, they will find themselves in positions where their superiority means nothing. Over the next 3 days, Lisa's command sent teams throughout the valley. They marked paths. They weakened stone formations. They dug holes covered with materials that looked stable from a distance, but would collapse under the weight of the Vex soldiers. They prepared the ground in dozens of places, creating an invisible battlefield that favored those who understood it. On the 4th day, the Vex moved out from their position at new dawn. A full battalion of soldiers, perhaps 200 of them, advanced into the valley below the mountains. They moved in formation, confident and disciplined. Lisa watched from her position high on the ridge. She had 150 soldiers with her, armed with conventional weapons that would barely scratch the Vex armor. But that was not the plan. When the Vex were deep in the valley, she gave the signal. Her soldiers opened fire, not with intention to kill, but with intention to drive the Vex forward. The bullets bounced harmlessly off armor, but the noise was enough. The Vex commander shouted orders, and his soldiers began to advance up the slope toward the human position. Lisa and her soldiers retreated, falling back into the mountains. The Vex pursued them. The first trap came within minutes. The ground beneath a group of 6 Vex soldiers simply gave way. They fell into a crevasse that had been hidden by carefully arranged stones and vegetation. Their comrades heard them fall. They heard the sounds of pain and confusion in their language. The Vex command structure faltered for just a moment. That moment was enough. Lisa's soldiers hit them from the sides, from positions above, from places the Vex had not seen. The Vex soldiers returned fire with weapons that burned through rock and melted stone, but they were now scattered, no longer in the perfect formations they had hoped to maintain. Some of them fell, not to Lisa's bullets, but to the terrain itself, to unseen drops and unstable ground. The battle lasted 3 hours. It was not a victory in the traditional sense. Lisa's soldiers were not killing the Vex in any significant numbers, but they were driving them back. They were forcing the Vex to retreat from the mountains toward the open ground below. As the last Vex soldier limped back down the valley, Lisa received word from the scout positions. They had killed 17 Vex soldiers and injured many more. They had lost 8 humans. 8 deaths was 8 too many, but it was not the catastrophe everyone had feared. The Vex had tasted defeat. They had advanced with confidence and had been forced to retreat. That night, in the cave chamber, Lisa met again with her command staff. News had reached them from other human settlements. They had heard the story. They had heard that Lisa Morrison had fought the Vex and won. Within a week, soldiers from 3 other settlements had made their way to the mountains. They came looking for Lisa. They came looking for someone who had proven that the Vex could be fought by the end of the month. There were 3,000 soldiers gathered in the mountain caves. Young men and women, determined and desperate. They came because they had seen something in Lisa's victory that changed everything. They came because they had proof that the Vex could bleed. Marcus spoke words that were being whispered throughout the camps. They are calling you the warrior queen, Commander. Lisa did not smile. She did not take pride in the name. She only nodded and turned back to the maps. The war was far from over. The real battle was still coming. But now, for the first time, she had an army that believed victory was possible. The training camps in the mountains had become cities. Soldiers from every human settlement on the planet had come to join Lisa Morrison. Warriors named Helen, Anthony, Sophia, and thousands more. They came from mining colonies, agricultural settlements, and scientific outposts. They came from every place humans had built on this world. Lisa had transformed the mountain caves into a war machine. She divided her forces into units of 20. Each unit learned to move as one organism. They learned to read terrain the way the Vex never could. They learned that technology meant nothing if you could not see your enemy, could not predict where they would strike. The training was brutal. Each morning, soldiers woke before dawn and ran through mountain passes while carrying heavy packs. They learned to construct defensive positions using only natural materials. They learned to identify weak points in Vex armor and formation patterns. Most importantly, they learned to think differently than the Vex expected them to think. Lisa brought in people from the scientific settlement. Engineers and technicians studied the Vex communication systems. They worked for days trying to decode the signals the Vex ships exchanged with their ground forces. It took 2 weeks, but they cracked it. The codes were complex, but they were inflexible. The Vex military relied on predetermined protocols. They sent the same signals in the same format every time. This was a weakness Lisa could exploit. One night, she gathered her senior commanders around a table. Derek was there, now coordinating logistics for the growing army. Rachel had established field hospitals throughout the cave system, preparing for casualties they all knew would come. Victoria had mapped every inch of terrain within 50 kilometers. And Marcus had taken over training operations, pushing the soldiers harder each day. The Vex have established a command post at the destroyed remains of New Dawn, Victoria reported. They have 40 soldiers stationed there permanently. More arrive and leave on a rotating basis. They are reinforcing their position. They are preparing for a major assault, Lisa said. It was not a question. They realize we are a greater threat than they initially assessed. Derek nodded grimly. We have intercepted communications. The planetary commander, Zexter, has been sending reports to the Vex fleet. He is telling them that humans are more dangerous than any species they have encountered. That is good, Lisa said. That means they will take us seriously. They will commit more forces. They will be more cautious. Caution slows operations down. It gives us time. Helen, one of the commanders of the larger military divisions, spoke up. Commander, we now have nearly 10,000 soldiers. But the Vex can bring down reinforcements from orbit. They can destroy us anytime they choose. Only if they choose, Lisa said. They will not choose that option if they believe they can conquer us through conventional military means. Zexter is a soldier. Soldiers pride themselves on defeating enemies. He will want to prove that the Vex military can overcome human resistance. He will not want to simply destroy the planet from the sky. That is not how military officers think. Sophia, the youngest of the senior commanders at only 32, leaned forward. "What are you proposing?" "We are going to give them a victory they cannot achieve," Lisa said. "We are going to make them think they are about to destroy us, and then we will show them what real resistance looks like." Over the next month, more soldiers arrived. Other settlements sent supplies hidden in the dark. The Vex occupation force remained relatively small, scattered across several defensive positions. They did not seem to realize how many humans had gathered in the mountains. Lisa used every hour of this time. She studied Vex movement patterns. She identified their supply routes. She discovered that the Vex received resupply shipments every 5 days from the orbital stations. Those resupply shipments came down in shuttles that landed at prepared zones outside the command post. If those shuttles could not land safely, the Vex soldiers would become isolated. Without ammunition and food from orbit, their superiority would begin to fade. 2 weeks before the full Vex assault was scheduled to begin, Lisa launched her first major operation. A team of 50 soldiers, led by Cameron, moved silently through the night toward the supply landing zone. They did not attack with weapons. Instead, they placed obstacles made of stone and metal on the landing field. They positioned them carefully so that a Vex shuttle pilot would think it was safe to land until the last moment. The first shuttle came down and clipped one of the obstacles on landing. The impact was not catastrophic, but it was enough to damage the vessel. The next shuttle, warned by the first pilot, attempted to land elsewhere. But Lisa's soldiers had prepared 3 other potential landing zones the same way. The Vex pilot had nowhere safe to land. For the next 4 days, no supplies reached the Vex command post. They began to ration their ammunition and food. The soldiers became frustrated and angry. Zexter demanded explanations from his commanders. How could such a primitive species disrupt basic military operations? The Vex escalated. They sent out patrols looking for the human soldiers. The patrols were precise and brutal, moving in formations designed to find and eliminate enemies. But Lisa's soldiers did not meet them in open combat. Instead, they ambushed the patrols from positions the Vex could not see. They used weapons that they had captured from the Vex themselves, letting the enemy wonder why their own weapons were being used against them. The psychological pressure was working. Zexter began to understand that he was not fighting a confused, panicked species. He was fighting a disciplined military force led by a commander who understood strategy. That realization pushed him to make a decision. He would end this now. He would commit the full force of the Vex military to a single massive assault. He would gather every soldier the planet could support and send them into the mountains. He would crush the human forces in one brutal engagement. Zexter did not know this was exactly what Lisa Morrison was waiting for in the command cave. Lisa studied the communications intercepts. She saw the orders going out to gather forces. She saw the Vex military machine beginning to mobilize for total war. She turned to her commanders. "They are coming," she said simply. "All of them. This is the moment we have been training for." The soldiers who heard those words did not feel fear. They felt something much stronger. They felt ready. Lisa Morrison had taught them that superior technology did not guarantee victory. She had taught them that humans could stand against anything if they had courage and strategy. She had taught them that the Vex, for all their power, were not gods. Now they would prove she was right. The morning of the assault arrived with red sky and cold wind. Zexter had assembled 500 Vex soldiers, the largest force he could bring to bear on a single planet. They marched out from New Dawn in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their armor gleaming in the light. They had received orders to eliminate every human on the planet. They had been promised that this would be simple. Lisa watched them from the ridge overlooking the valley. Her soldiers were positioned throughout the mountains in locations the Vex did not know existed. She had hidden them behind rock formations and in caves. She had given each unit a mission. When the signal came, they would execute it with precision. The Vex advanced into the valley in 3 columns. They expected the humans to make a stand. They expected to see organized resistance. Instead, what they saw was confusion. A group of 200 human soldiers appeared on the ridge to the north, clearly visible. They opened fire at the advancing Vex force. The bullets harmlessly bounced off armor, but the message was clear. A fight had begun. The Vex commander, an officer named Braxor, immediately ordered an assault on the ridge. 250 Vex soldiers peeled away from the main force and began advancing up the slope. This was the first wave of battle, and the Vex believed they were crushing an obvious enemy position. But Lisa had planned for this dot as the Vex soldiers climbed the ridge. The human defenders retreated. The Vex pursued them up the slope, following what seemed like a running enemy. What they did not see was the ground had been prepared. The path they climbed had been weakened in dozens of places. Pits had been dug and carefully covered. Natural formations had been cut from within, making them unstable. When the Vex force had climbed halfway up the ridge, the ground beneath the first wave gave way. Soldiers fell into crevasses and pits. Others found solid ground, dissolving beneath their feet. 23 Vex soldiers fell or were injured. The formation broke apart. The climbing soldiers no longer moved as a unified force. They spread out, trying to find stable ground, and they became vulnerable. From hidden positions above them, human soldiers opened fire with precision, not trying to kill through armor penetration, but targeting the exposed joints and connections where Vex technology integrated with flesh. 4 more Vex soldiers fell. The rest retreated, dragging their wounded back down the slope. The main force of Vex soldiers, seeing the defeat of the assault team, hesitated. They had lost 27 soldiers in minutes. This had not been part of the plan, but Zexter was not a commander who accepted hesitation. He studied the terrain and made a new decision. He would send his soldiers through the valley itself, moving along the flattest ground. He would advance through the heart of the mountains, crushing all resistance. This was exactly what Lisa had anticipated. The second wave of the assault began as the Vex main force advanced down the valley floor. Suddenly, human soldiers appeared from every direction, not as a unified force, but as small units striking and then disappearing. They attacked from above, from the sides, from positions the Vex had not secured. Derek's engineering teams had prepared supply line interception points. As the Vex soldiers advanced, their ammunition and communication networks became unreliable. Cargo drones that were supposed to deliver supplies were destroyed by coordinated human attacks. The Vex soldiers found themselves cut off from support. More critically, Victoria's scouts had located the mobile command centers that directed Vex operations. These were vehicles with sophisticated communication equipment. When Lisa gave the signal, teams of human soldiers struck them with focused attacks. The command centers were destroyed. The Vex military structures suddenly lost the ability to coordinate effectively. Without unified direction, the Vex soldiers became confused. Orders that should have been relayed were not. Soldiers in different sections of the valley did not receive the reinforcement they needed. They began to retreat toward more secure positions. Then something unexpected happened. The intercepted communications showed that Bradley, a lieutenant in the Vex forces, had begun giving orders independent of the command structure. He was rallying soldiers around him. He was organizing a counterattack. Lisa saw this in the communications reports and made an instant decision. She could not allow the Vex to reorganize. She stood up and turned to Marcus. "Get me a small team. I am going to the valley floor." Marcus did not hesitate. Yes, Commander. 10 minutes later, Lisa stood in the open valley with a strike team of 20 soldiers. The Vex were still confused, still processing their losses. The human soldiers in their hiding positions watched, wondering what their commander was doing. Lisa and her team advanced toward the center of the Vex force. They were not hiding. They were walking directly toward the enemy. The Vex soldiers saw them and began to fire. Bullets and energy weapons tore through the air. 2 of Lisa's soldiers fell, but the rest kept walking forward. They were not trying to win through firepower. They were trying to prove something. They were trying to prove that humans could face the Vex without breaking. Zexter emerged from his damaged command vehicle. He saw Lisa walking toward him across the open ground. Around them, the battle raged. Vex soldiers fought against human defenders emerging from every position. The organized Vex assault had become a chaotic struggle. When Lisa reached him, she was bleeding from a burn wound on her shoulder. She raised her weapon not to fire, but to lower it deliberately in front of Zexter. An act of defiance and respect. "We have not defeated you yet," she said. "But you can see that you will not defeat us. You came here believing that superior technology meant inevitable victory. You were wrong." Zexter stared at her. In the code of his people, this moment meant something. A warrior stood before him, bloodied but unbroken. She had not retreated. She had come to meet him directly. He did something then that shocked his own soldiers. He lowered his weapon. "You have earned the respect of the Vex," Zexter said. "But there will be consequences for this." "I understand," Lisa said. "But today, you will leave this planet. Tomorrow, you can worry about consequences." The remaining Vex soldiers began to retreat. They moved toward their ships in an organized withdrawal. The humans did not stop them. The battle was overdone as the Vex vessels rose into the sky. Lisa collapsed. Rachel was there immediately, treating the burn wound, checking for other injuries. Around her, soldiers began to cheer. Not because they had achieved total victory, but because they had survived. Because they had proven that even against overwhelming odds, humans could fight. Lisa had lost 147 soldiers in the battle. The Vex had lost over 100. More importantly, the Vex Empire would now know that humans were not an easy enemy. 3 months after the Vex retreat, the city of New Sanctuary stood where New Dawn had been destroyed. The human settlement had been rebuilt, but it was different now. It was a military center. Soldiers trained in the valleys and the mountains. Defenses were permanent structures, not temporary camps. The age of innocent colony settlements had ended. The age of human warriors had begun. Lisa stood at the highest point in the city, looking out at the training grounds. Soldiers moved through the terrain with precision and speed. They were faster now, stronger, more disciplined. They had fought the Vex and survived. That knowledge changed everything about how they saw themselves. The message from the Vex Empire had arrived 2 weeks ago. Zexter had submitted his official report to the Vex Council. He had detailed the battle. He had described the human tactics, the strategic brilliance, the willingness to fight even when the odds seemed impossible. The report concluded with a simple statement. Humans were more dangerous than any species the Vex Empire had encountered in 300 years of expansion. The message from the Council had followed. No further aggressive action would be taken against humans. Instead, the Vex would respect human space. They would offer trade agreements. They would treat humanity as an equal. That message had spread throughout the galaxy like fire. Other species had heard that humans, a species that had only recently escaped their homeworld, had defeated the Vex military. Other species had heard that humans could fight, and that they would fight, and that they could win. From every human settlement on the planet, delegations came to New Sanctuary. They came to see Lisa Morrison and to witness the transformation she had created. Young soldiers wanted to join her military academy. Political leaders wanted to form alliances with her. Military commanders from other settlements wanted to learn her tactics. But Lisa had changed since the battle. She was tired in a way that sleep could not fix. She had sent people to their deaths. She had ordered the destruction of Vex soldiers. She had made decisions that balanced the lives of her own soldiers against strategic necessity. The weight of command was heavier than she had anticipated. One evening, a young soldier named Cameron found her at the observation point where she had stood 3 months earlier. He was one of the first who had believed in her. He had survived the entire war without serious injury. "The Council wants to make you the supreme commander of all human military forces," Cameron said. "They want to centralize authority under your command." Lisa was quiet for a long time. "I am not a commander because I want power. I am a commander because I was the only one who could see a way to survive." "That is not the same thing. What will you do?" Cameron asked. "I will establish a military academy," Lisa said. "I will teach others what I know about strategy, about terrain, about how to fight when you are outgunned. I will spread this knowledge so that it does not depend on one person. I will make sure that no human settlement is ever as defenseless as we were." News of her decision spread quickly. Soldiers from other settlements came to learn. Commanders from different planets sent their officers. Within a year, Lisa's academy had trained 3,000 military leaders. They went back to their settlements and established their own units, their own training programs. The knowledge multiplied and spread. Lisa established something else as well. She created the Historical Archive, a library dedicated to studying human conflict. Military strategy from Earth's past was studied alongside lessons from the Vex War. Young soldiers learned how ancient humans had defeated enemies with superior technology through intelligence and adaptability. They learned that this was not new. This was what humans had always done. 2 years after the battle, the Vex Empire sent an official delegation to New Sanctuary. They came with trade proposals and technology offerings. They came to establish diplomatic relations with a species that had proven itself worthy of respect. The delegation leader, a Vex official named Thrax, met with Lisa in the Great Hall. "You have changed the course of history," Thrax said. "Other species heard about your victory and began to resist the expansion of the Vex Empire. 3 species have refused our demands for territory. 2 others have demanded better trade terms. All because they believed if humans could defeat us, perhaps they could as well." Lisa accepted this information without surprise. She had understood from the beginning that her victory meant more than just the defense of one planet. It meant that the galaxy would be different now. The strong would still be strong, but they could no longer assume that strength meant dominance. 5 years after the Vex withdrawal, Lisa stepped down as the primary commander of human military forces. She was 57 years old now, and the next generation of commanders was ready. Anthony and Sophia had proven themselves as capable leaders. Helen had established a strategic planning organization that was respected across multiple planets. Cameron had been promoted to lead the academy. Lisa remained as the advisor to the council, but her active role in military operations was finished. She spent her time writing. She wrote about the philosophy of war. She wrote about the importance of understanding your enemy, understanding terrain, understanding yourself. Her writings became required reading for military academies, not just on her planet, but across the entire human sphere of influence. One day, as she was working in her study, a young soldier came to her requesting permission to establish a statue in her honor. Lisa declined, but she approved the creation of a memorial instead, one that honored all the soldiers who had died in the war. Names were carved into stone, individual humans who had made the ultimate sacrifice. The memorial became known as the Wall of Human Courage. Lisa was invited to travel to other planets. to speak about strategy and leadership. She visited 5 different worlds. Everywhere she went, young soldiers asked her the same question. How had she known the Vex could be defeated? How had she seen a path to victory when everyone else had seen only darkness? Her answer was always the same. She had not known. She had simply refused to accept that the outcome was already decided. She had studied her enemy. She had learned their weaknesses. She had prepared the ground. And then she had pushed forward with absolute determination, willing to sacrifice anything except her principles. That is what makes humans dangerous, she told the crowds of soldiers. We do not accept defeat. We do not stop fighting just because we are outgunned. We look at impossible odds and we say not yet. We find ways to win when winning should be impossible. That is human nature. That is what no amount of technology can overcome. 30 years after the Vex arrived on her world, Lisa Morrison died peacefully in her sleep. She was 82 years old. Her funeral was attended by representatives from a dozen different species. The Vex sent an official delegation. They came to honor the woman who had changed their empire forever. At her tomb, the inscription read simple words. No titles, no military ranks, no grand declarations. Just the truth. Here lies Lisa Morrison. She taught humanity to fight. More importantly, she taught them to survive. The galaxy had changed since her first battle. The Vex Empire had reformed itself, becoming less aggressive and more diplomatic. Other species had risen up and established their own territories. Humans had spread across a dozen star systems. And everywhere humans went, they carried with them the knowledge that no opponent was truly unbeatable. Lisa's legacy was not measured in battles, won, or territories conquered. It was measured in the belief she had given to an entire species. The belief that courage and intelligence and determination mattered. That the small could stand against the powerful. That humans, despite their youth as a spacefaring civilization, could look at any challenge and say, "We can face this." That was the real victory. That was the true transformation of human history.